Hi, I'm Coach Dan Gordon, and welcome to my podcast for badass entrepreneurs only. If you're an entrepreneur who loves hitting it hard, growing your business, and learning from billionaires how to succeed, then you are clearly badass and you are going to love my show. But if you just want to take life slow and easy, you aren't badass, don't even bother listening. For the rest of you, strap in, for Badass Entrepreneurs Only is taking off now.
Every day, you have the opportunity to transform your life in exciting and financially rewarding ways. You can expand the scope of your business, create new products, launch an entirely new venture. You can form new partnerships. You can create new programs. You can remodel your business into a kind of offering that sets your industry on fire. These exciting opportunities for growth and expansion are available to you every day and in every moment of the day. You already know what they are. You've had amazing flashes of brilliance. You've seen in your mind's eye a vision of yourself as the person you can truly be in the world. Then why haven't you done it? Well, there's this little thing that's stuck in our human operating system. Every time we think about doing something new, exciting, or revolutionary, this thing immediately shows us the worst possible outcome. This thing, it's sort of a holdover from our caveman days. Back then, when we heard something rustling in the brush, that thing said, "That's a tiger, get out." Didn't matter if it was a tiger or not. It was in our best interest to assume that it was. All those happy-go-lucky cavemen who thought, "Meh, it's probably just the wind," they got eaten. That means that as humans, we have evolved from those survivors, the ones who are paranoid, afraid, and always assuming the world is out to get them. That's the thing that's still locked in your operating system. It thinks it's doing you a favor, trying to keep you alive. But in reality, it's only holding you back. This is exactly why you haven't jumped on any of your new and exciting business ventures. You think you're being smart and cautious, but really, you're just giving in to an outdated piece of human software. This is a very hard thing to transcend. It's why so few people are the Elon Musks, the Steve Jobs, the Mother Teresas, and the MLKs of the world. To step into your greatness, to create wealth, to live in the highest version of yourself, you have to overcome millions of years of programming. Programming that play visions of personal catastrophes on an endless loop in your mind. You have been programmed to not take risks. You know there aren't any tigers out there. You know that no matter what, you're going to be okay. You know that taking risks provides you with the best opportunity for exponential growth and living a truly fulfilling life. You need to remember that there will never, and I mean never, be a time where you feel ready to take on a bold new challenge. It will always feel scary. You will always feel uncertain. There will always be legitimate reasons not to do it. You will not get over your fears before you take action. You cannot argue with your fears and convince them they are wrong. You cannot figure out a way around your fears so you don't feel them. What you can do instead is get up and focus your mind on all the wonderful and exciting ways you can be living your life today, if only you choose to take action and begin now. If this makes sense to you, and even if it doesn't, I want to give you something that I know will help. It's my blueprint for success called Jumping the Gap, Kill Your Story, and Take Action. I want to help you get what you want in life, and this will help you get there. It's absolutely free. To get it, just send a text to my phone, 213-409-8366, and text the word GAP, G-A-P. 213-409-8366, and text the word GAP, G-A-P. You'll get my blueprint for success, Jumping the Gap, Kill Your Story, and Take Action. So I am excited to introduce my guest. Hey, have you ever said to yourself, hey, I have a great idea for a TV show? A lot of people have. Well, my guest today not only said that, but he actually created a TV show. And more than that, he created a kind of show no one had ever seen before. And more than that, he went on to create a total of 44 TV shows. Not 44 episodes of a show. We're talking 44 different TV shows. Mark Cronin is one of Hollywood's most successful television producers. He is widely credited for co-creating a new version of reality TV called celeb-reality when he created the show The Surreal Life in 2003. Mark's circuitous path to Hollywood began with a degree in chemical engineering from the University of Pennsylvania. From there, he went into marketing. Then he chose to take the bold step of pursuing his dream and started writing for television for Nick-at-Nite. I have a lot of questions about how he made such a dramatic shift in his life. Mark then became a writer and producer for The Howard Stern Show, Baba Booey. He then moved to MTV and became a head writer for the dating show Singled Out. Mark then created his own game show for Comedy Central called Beat the Geeks. From there, Mark started cranking out successful reality show after successful reality show. His work is credited for single-handedly saving the cable channel VH1, as well as setting rating records across the board for network and cable TV. Most recently, Mark developed Bravo's highest-rated show called Below Deck, a sort of Downton Abbey on the high seas, now in its 8th season. Today, Mark runs his own production company called Little Wooden Boat, where he's still at it, making groundbreaking television. So we're going to find out all about how Mark made it big in Hollywood, what it takes to be a creative innovator, and so much more.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to Badass Entrepreneurs Only.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. That's really a wonderful introduction. I guess I'm impressed with myself listening to that
Well,
all at once. I don't know.
It's just like, it's amazing, right? I mean, I understand that all you're doing is getting up the next day and just sort of doing the next thing. But when and I tell my clients this all the time, stop and look back, like look over the mileage. It's way impressive.
Yeah. So, I wonder I'm tired.
Well, you look great.
Thank you, Tenso.
I'd like to jump right in and talk about this strange and unusual path you took from going from chemical engineering to marketing to writing for television. Like, how does that work?
Well, what happened to me was, I always liked show business and theater. I was always in theater in high school. I was in the plays. I was doing summer stage. I was a theater kid, but I never thought it was a way to make a living. I always thought that show business was really a patchy crapshoot, and their chances were so small of staying employed or making any kind of headway. And so since I also had a more practical side to me, which, could manage to get through a science test or something, I went that direction out of practicality, kind of what you're talking about, out of kind of fear. And it turns out that I just absolutely made the wrong call. Engineering as a professional engineer is horrible. And once you graduate from college, you don't have, an extracurricular life. Your profession is your profession, and those are your people, and that's what you do.
And this is so important, Mark, because right now, there's a lot of people listening who are living that exact life that you were describing. They're doing the thing that they were trained to do, and they said, well, I can make a good living at this. But they've reached a point where they're saying, I am unfulfilled. Is this it? And so How did you make the leap of going, you know what? I may go broke. I may end up living under a bridge or something, but I'm going for the thing that I love. Like, how did you mentally prepare yourself to do that?
Well, I hedged a little, honestly. I mean, I worked as an engineer for 5 years, and I disliked it instantly, but it took me 5 years of doing it and earning money before I was able to step off the cliff into the entertainment world. And what I had promised myself, I guess I really started in earnest trying to get out of engineering into what I considered the creative world. And I felt like I would take anything in the creative world. I tried to be an ad copywriter. I took lessons on writing plays. I tried stand-up comedy. I tried writing jokes for comedians. I tried writing, I just tried to anything I could do that wasn't engineering. And I promised myself that I could find a job in entertainment that was on par with engineering. I needed $1,000 a week.
But how do you keep going? You know, that's the thing that that stops most people. That you should have said, okay, this is what I make in engineering. This is what I make in entertainment. It's just not going to work. Like,
right.
And you had you didn't jump forward in time and go, oh, if I just stay at it, I'll make something of myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you had no guarantee that anything was going to work. How did you stay at it?
I guess I stayed at it out of just pure necessity. Like, I'd go mad if I didn't. Like, I had to keep trying. I used to write jokes on the way to work. I'd had a little tape recorder, and I would be driving from Manhattan to Long Island where I worked and stuck on the LIE. And I would write news jokes, and those eventually I started getting paid for by faxing them into Nickelodeon's Global Village News. It was like a news break show.
Nick-at-Nite presents Global Village News.
As the Hitchcock Marathon continues, death rates nationwide have held steady. However, the number of ironic deaths has increased sharply.
And they started paying me $150 a joke. And so...
But hear about that. How did you hear about this Nick-at-Nite thing?
You know, in that case, honestly, it was a bit of a connection because somebody from my school worked there. One of my friends from school, Amy Friedman, wonderful woman. And she's gone on to a big career in children's television. And she gave me my first chance to earn money. But it was never going to be enough to quit my job.
See, I'm going to push back a little bit because there was something at risk. So you had to look into the face of something that you were passionate about and potentially fail at it. And that's why people don't do what you did. Like, in pursuing this, like, oh, these jokes, I mean, I'm never going to be able to make a living out of this. I'm just going to ignore the whole thing. But you kept at it. Like, so what do you think is in you?
Well, I will say that I recommend to anybody going into anything that they get some experience standing up in front of people and performing, whether that's public speaking or literally being in a play or whatever that means, even playing an instrument or just something, because when you step in front of a group of people and they're expecting something from you, I think that training of doing public performance or public speaking or doing an open mic night or anything like that is so valuable because it shows you that you can fail and live, that you can fail and wake up the next morning and try again, that anything bad that can happen to you in a bad performance can be made up for and forgotten very quickly.
Yeah. And here's what I think you did, maybe even on a subconscious level, is that you transmuted that feeling of fear into that feeling of excitement. Right? Because if you do the things that scare you long enough, that feeling of fear just starts to be the thing that's part of the experience. And it feels more like, oh, yeah, this is just what I'm going to do now. And this is how I'm going to feel. This is kind of exciting.
Yeah, it's a rush. It is a rush. Yeah. And your mind clarifies and you think harder and faster and you become a better version of yourself for a little while because you've got this heightened rush of fear that you're using to your advantage.
Yeah. It's so true. Like, just the more you practice the feelings that you're uncomfortable with, the more you get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. Right.
I think that's absolutely right.
Yeah. And then eventually the stepping into discomfort is just a part of the experience. Is that what you found?
Yes. I think the pursuit of comfort is a bad move early on in your career.
I would say at any point in your career.
Later on, I think when you get to create 44 TV shows and you want to kick back for a second, then pursuit of comfort is okay.
I want to talk about what it takes to create a television show, because to me, and probably to my audience, that sounds like such like putting together a nuclear power plant. Like, I wouldn't even know where to start. And further, it's like anytime somebody starts doing something new, they tend to feel like it's impossible until they start to break down the steps. So I want to play with that because I came up with a pitch for a reality show, and I want to see what you do with it and how you would break it down and turn it into a show. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So here's my pitch, right? We take a down and out celebrity and make them work for the people who used to be their personal assistant. Where would you begin in creating that show?
Well, you want to come up with the core storytelling elements right away. So you're saying what you're trying to do is a little taste of your own medicine. You're trying to do how would you like it if you were in their shoes kind of story. It's a good tried and true formula. To sell an actual TV show, you'd have to make sure it had a great new original hook to how you were doing it. So you'd have to flesh it out quite a bit. I mean,
so the first thing that you look for is that hook.
But the first thing to make sure you have a hook, and you do have that, taste of your own medicine hook. And it has a little bit of a celebrity hook to it. So hopefully it's somebody you're interested in watching, because I found that celebrities are usually great reality television because they started out as bigger than life characters anyway. Mm-hmm. And that's only been reinforced through their celebrity. So now you put them on camera working in some other job. It works because they're big personalities. They're better than the average personality, I guess, or bigger than the average personality.
And so, what did you find starting in your career was the hardest thing about creating a TV show?
I guess I had to learn. It took me a while to learn how specific customers were. That every channel, and in my day, I was selling to channels. I don't know. These days, you're selling to almost anything. It could be an app, and every one of those channels had a different target audience, a subtly different target audience. Lifetime was after a certain age woman that lived in a certain part of the country, and Bravo was after a whole different group of people. And you had to learn really specifically what each channel was going for.
And so, and what's cool is like you got into like comedy writing, and then you got into game shows. And then something drew you to reality television. Like, you could have made a great career in just game shows, and I know that you're still doing that. But what is it that really drew you to reality TV?
Dan, it was more like I followed success. I was open-minded about my career. If I had sold an amazing sitcom, which I tried to do early in my career, I may have gone on to be now a sitcom guy. I don't know. I didn't care. I didn't care if I ended up being a science fiction guy or a sitcom writer or a reality television producer. I was interested in success and going the route that I was succeeding in rather than fighting against the world.
God, Mark, that's so important, because it's very easy to get locked in a belief of like, this is my track. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what I'm going to do. But there are so many avenues. And I think people get trapped out of fear. Like, well, if I don't follow the specific avenue, I'll fall out of this completely, and then I won't do what I love. But what I heard you say, which is what I love, is you followed the success. Right?
Yes. Within reason, meaning like I was just so grateful to be in the creative world. I was so grateful to be in television. Like I was an engineer. I had a little desk in a cubicle with a computer, and I was doing calculations for filtration systems. I was going to shoot myself. And so I never lost the gratefulness of not being that. So I was happy. Like if I was a science fiction writer, great, fantastic. Why not? That's better than it's better than being a chemical engineer.
And Mark, somewhere there's somebody writing a television show right now who's thinking, if I could just get into filtration systems.
Right. I don't know. It'd be amazing, but I say go for it. Filtration systems.
When you got into reality TV, then you created this subgenre. Like, so what was it that said to you, well, let me ask it this way. In 2003, which is around the time this is happening, like there were essentially three kinds of shows, right? There was like Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, Little Fish Out of Water. There were the freak shows like, My Big Fat Obnoxious Fiance, which is actually a show. And there were shows like The Osbournes, where you got into this personal life of a celebrity. And you said, hey, essentially, let's make one that's all three, where there's a celebrity, where we're following their lives, where it's a little fish out of water. And you called that the Surreal Life. Very appropriate.
Hey, it's JoJo on the radio here at 102.7 KISS FM in Los Angeles. Did you hear that VH1's doing the Surreal Life? They're putting 6 celebs into that killer house in the Hollywood Hills, and they're taping these guys around the clock. Now, the roommates have no radios, they have no televisions or no internet. And you won't believe this cat.
How did you put all that together?
Well, the world of the sitcom was dying.
Yeah.
You could see the writing on the wall that people were getting tired of the same old living room set and the crazy neighbor who comes in the door and the audience and everybody's insulting each other for a half an hour. And that format was getting tired and a little worn by 2003. And that's why you had things like Survivor blowing up and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. These shows started taking the place of sitcoms that were getting tired. And so I thought, well, could we reinvent the sitcom using these like former sitcom stars? Like, what if we took people who were sitcom stars in the 70s and now put them in a reality show and make a family out of them? Let's cast a mother figure and a father figure and a black sheep son and a ingenue daughter and even the wacky neighbor. I don't know, put them all in a house together.
Wow.
And then, that's what the concept of the Surreal Life was. And that's where.
So that's what you were looking at when you began to put this together. Here are the pieces of the puzzle that I want. Here are the personalities that I'm looking to interact. Is that fair?
That's right. That's right. You definitely put it together based on what were my strengths already. Who did I know? What was the world I was in? Mm-hmm. And even though at the moment it was a talk show on cable, could I use this same group somehow? Or could I use this same collection of contacts to create something bigger and better? Mm-hmm. At the time, Survivor was like people starving to literally they were starving to death and maybe going to die and fighting over, a pillow. And it was great drama, but it wasn't comedy. Right. It was tense.
Yeah, it wasn't.
And so I felt like, well, that's not me anyway. I've always done lighthearted entertainment. And I felt like reality television really wasn't doing enough of that. Let's fill a house with giant personalities. And then, it's a classic setup is roommates. It's like if you put big, former rock star in with former movie star in with television star, and they all have their different problems and big personalities and big egos. Can they all figure out, what to buy at the grocery store for dinner?
And I watched a couple of episodes in preparation to speak with you. And the thing that I loved about it, I loved the first episode because as they're all, shows them driving in and coming in, and they still believe that they were at the top of their career. These are people that you haven't heard of for a while or just are kind of bottomed out. And the way that they talk about themselves and their place in the world is as if they just walked off a red carpet.
I think people don't know that show business really is like that. I don't think that any person in showbiz, whether they had a lot of success in the 70s and 80s and haven't for a little while, they're still one script away from a reboot. Even somebody like a Corey Feldman or somebody who has done big movies as a younger person and then hasn't found a lot of success in their later parts of their lives, I still say they are literally one project away from right back in your living room.
It's sort of like, what happened with John Travolta and Pulp Fiction.
Perfect example. Everybody is a potential John Travolta reboot.
Yeah. And I got a strong sense watching it that what I was watching was real, that it wasn't prompted by you or a producer. It was real people having real experiences.
Whatever differences we may have had, I don't want you to think that I have anything personal against you because I don't. It really affects me. I'm sorry. And I really am excited that you're all going to share the wedding with me tomorrow.
And is that important to you that you make reality television?
Very, very, very important to me. I like setting up the room full of TNT. I like packing in as much potential disaster as possible, but I'm not going to pick the disaster. I'm not going to dictate the disaster. It's up to you guys to figure out what you're going to do with this situation you're in.
Oh, that's cool. And speaking of big personalities, I would imagine that a lot of people ask you about Howard Stern. And I don't want to know about Stern in particular, but I want to know what it was like for you to get on that show, because that's a very tight-knit little protected thing. And the reason that I'm asking that is that there's a lot of people who have this like dream job and think, well, I could never work for this person, Richard Branson or Ron Howard or someone like that. How did you get in?
It was tricky. I mean, you have to find your little spot of weakness over there and wedge yourself into it. In the case of the Howard Stern show, their radio show is that tight little group of, it's like a little locker room of friends that are doing the radio show, and 50 people a day are showing up outside of that studio trying to get a job on that show. And that wasn't going to work. But I saw this opportunity in Secaucus, New Jersey, where they were shooting a Howard Stern television show with a really low budget and, it wasn't, quite frankly, it wasn't very good. Like, it wasn't well produced or well written or anything. It was a real shoot from the hip kind of show, and it looked it. But I saw that as an opportunity. The fact that it was so vulnerable to someone like me who was determined to get hired, it worked out for me. I started writing sketches for that show and faxing them to their fax machine line, I guess, that I got out of their company directory. And I would just follow up with a phone call, and the poor producer was answering his own phone. I guess he didn't have an assistant. So the producer's answering the phone, and I'm saying, I just faxed in this sketch. See if you like it. I'd be glad if you used it. You don't even have to pay me. Just, I'd love to have a chance to talk to you. And I wasn't, a lot of people trying to break into show business are real precious about their creative work. They think, oh my God, this is going to get stolen. And it's like, I feel like if it's a good idea and somebody steals it, then you better have like 50 more behind it, or you don't belong in the business.
Yeah.
And so I was actually looking for them to take a sketch of mine and use it so that I could say with some moral high ground, hey guys, how about talking to me about actually working for you? And that's what actually worked. I kept sending in sketches and following up with phone calls, and it took me months, and I eventually kind of wore them down, and they hired me.
That's such a great story, because what I heard you say is essentially, most people will look at a bank vault, go, wow, that's a really big door. I can never get through that door. And what you essentially said is, I wonder if there's a screen door around the back.
Yep, right? That's exactly right. Find your screen door around the back. Going in the brute force way that everybody else is doing is probably not going to work. Nah. Just on the numbers. You have to be cleverer than that. You have to be a little bit sneakier than that, a little bit more persistent.
And I think most people think, boy, if I can just get a chance, then I can rise to the top. And what you said is, if I can just get a chance, I can start at the bottom.
Yes.
Lower than the bottom.
No question. You should not be too proud to start at the bottom. I think I'm just speaking about entertainment, but I think this goes for a lot of kind of industries. Just get your foot in the door. And if you are sweeping the floor, great. Be the best floor sweeper they've ever seen, and start offering to help wash the windows too. And if that all of a sudden then you see somebody else who needs help over here with their shredder, help them there. Like whatever it is, you get in there, and then you get your tentacles spreading as fast as possible into everybody and trying to help everybody and work hard and become somebody that they depend on. And then you'll just solidify your spot.
In every way. You were relentless in getting that job. You faxed in sketches and then called them. And I'm clear that it was like, please give me a job. Hey, just checking in. Did you get it? Right?
Yeah.
And then
that's
when
right.
you got in, you were relentless in being helpful. So you never said, hey, that's not my job. I'm doing this thing.
But I was immediately trying to find other ways to help. I was trying to help the producer who was having trouble writing the format on the computer every day. And I had good computer skills from being an engineer. So I would start writing the format for the show for the producer. And then it became my job to do that. And then I was still writing the new sketches and stuff, but I was also keeping track of everything we were going to shoot. And then when we had a celebrity guest, I would coach the celebrity guest on what was about to happen, or greet them at the door, or whatever. It was not normal writer job, but it made me indispensable on this super, understaffed television show. And I learned every single thing I did to help somebody taught me another angle of the business that I just stuck in my little bag and have used ever since.
Mark, that is so important. And this is something that I've heard over and over again from different guests, from different people. Everybody who has been successful is they said, I made myself irreplaceable. because I started doing so many different things. I talked to this kid who got an internship at a TV station. And the first thing he did was memorized everybody's name. Right? He downloaded pictures of them and he put them on flashcards and memorized people's names. And then he started bringing coffee. And then he just ingratiated himself. So he was sort of a barnacle, but in a good way.
That is exactly right. That is the perfect story of what to do once you get your foot in the door. You need to be relentless getting your foot in the door, and then you need to be relentless in your quest to be helpful, and just nothing is too much for you to do. If you're going to be all, precious about, oh, that's not my job, then you're never going to be that spectacular.
And one last stern question before we move on, just for my own edification. What was your experience like of working with him? Because I know he's not this wild and crazy guy off camera, off mic. Like, he's a very serious business person. Did you experience that?
Yeah, I love Howard. Howard is like a mentor to me. He's like my show business father. The great thing about Howard was he had a vision for what his show was, and he wasn't going to let corporate suits tell him different. He had the confidence of knowing what he was trying to do, even if other people who might have even been his bosses, even if they didn't fully understand what the hell he was doing, he knew what he was doing, and he knew how to fight for it. He knew how to fight for his creative vision. And fighting for your creative vision is crucial. There's a lot of opinions, and you have to know as a producer what you're trying to get to and where you can give and where you need to put your foot down. And that kind of fighting creatively for your vision, I learned from Howard.
And Mark, do you think you use some of that Howard Stern technology in creating like your 44 shows? No question. In many, many ways. I mean, one way is, I learned from Howard that popular is what you're going for. You're not going for the most, I'm sorry to say, you're not going for the most clever, perfect turn of phrase. Right. You're going for the clearest communication possible. You're going for, there's a lot of people out there and they're not even paying 100% attention to your show. So you better make it a clear story. It can't be so subtle that it's just lost in the jumble. And he does that on purpose. It's about capturing an enormous audience, and pay attention to the audience, and pay attention to the ratings, and pay attention to, because highly rated television shows are successful television shows. Right. And they get seen by most people.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I was trying to crack up as many people as I possibly could.
That's great.
And if I could crack up 5 million people, great. If I could crack up 10 million people, twice as good. Right. And that was literally my attitude.
I want to know, have you ever had a real heartbreak in your professional life, where like you put your heart and soul into something, a show, and it just didn't work?
Yes, that probably happened about 15 to 25 times.
Wow. How did you come back from that?
I mean, I'm sorry to say, but it's just the nature of the world. It's like the greatest things get crushed for the dumbest reasons at some point, or just bad luck and timing, or 9/11, or, you just don't know what you're going to get hit with. You don't know how the world is going to change. And it could result in months of wasted effort and work for no fault of your own, that you get just shot right down by the world. It's, that is not efficient. It is not, things don't go in a straight line for very long periods of time.
We're tight on time, and there's two things that I want to get to. One, I really like Below Deck, your show on Bravo. And would you say it's the best show that you've done?
I haven't said those words, but I am certainly super proud of it at the moment. I got 2 spinoffs, so there's 3 versions of the show. It has taken over the channel at a time when the housewives are kind of waning. I guess it's coming up, I guess, on being the most popular show I've ever done. And as I've said earlier, popular equals good.
I need to give you a life jacket.
Green is the best, then pink.
I've never had a primary charter guess.
Oh.
She had a full eagle spread right there.
You don't seem happy. You're not smiling. You're coming off kind of bitchy. Are you kidding me?
What's really cool to me is that it's clear that you are still so enthusiastic about your work. Do you ever think like, man, I can't believe I get to keep doing this?
It's so fun. I mean, there's a lot of downside to reality television. I mean, it's the kind of television where, you're shooting the show at 3 a.m. in the case of Below Deck, on a choppy seas boat, and the cast is drunk and somebody might stab somebody else and you're responsible. So it's not at all, smooth sailing or some kind of easy, low stress gig, really, even this many years into it. It's at any moment in reality television, you're on the edge of disaster.
Clearly would have never been a part of chemical engineering. So I guess you got to take the good with the bad.
Right. But I mean, like, even in contrast to somebody who does, say, a drama or a sitcom, those are just actors. They're reading scripts.
Right, rubber knife.
They set up shots. Nobody's going to get hurt.
And also what you said about that you've spun off, and what I know about your 44 shows is some of them are spinoffs from other shows. So you've created Below Deck, but then there's other spinoffs. And that's a great example of when you create something and it's working, you want to say, what else can I do that's like this? Because my market already likes this thing. Let's see what's similar to it that they can like as well. I know a lot of entrepreneurs who say, no, this thing is working. So let me just stick with it. Well,
once you have a happy customer, sell that customer more. Once you have a happy audience, provide that audience more of what makes them happy a lot, in the same vein.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. And is that what you're doing with your company, Little Wooden Boat? Are you making people happy?
Yes. I mean, I'm an elder statesman of the genre at this point.
Yes.
I get a lot of, people respect my opinion. At times I even get paid just to give my opinion about a show or something.
And that's fun.
So that's really nice. I like it when I just give my opinion, actually pay for them, since I would give them out for free.
Beautiful thing. And it is the pinnacle of where you can get to in life. Because as you're moving up that pyramid, you want to be able to get to the top and not just jump off with a golden parachute, but then lift someone else up.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I'm very proud of the people who have worked under me, who have gone on to really great careers, show running careers and executive producers. And I'd like to think that I've been a help to them, teaching them along the way and helping them branch out and find their own amazing success. It is fulfilling. It's like children, it's like you've raised them and you'd like to see them go out in the world.
Mark, I thank you for being so generous with your time today. You've given us like this unique insight on what it takes to push forward and be successful in any competitive industry. I appreciate you sharing your stories of success, of fun, of stern, and everything in between. I thank you so much for being on my show.
Thank you, Dan. This was a lot of fun. It really is fun to talk about, the story like that. So thanks. And you're doing great work too. So everybody out there, I hope you do feel inspired in some way to take that chance.
I want to remind my audience that you can get my blueprint for success called Jumping the Gap, Kill Your Story and Take Action. Just text the word GAP to my phone, 213-409-8366, and text the word GAP, G-A-P, 213-409-8366. I also want to thank you. Yeah, you. The you who is listening to this show right now. Thank you for opening your mind and stepping into the world of infinite possibilities. Mark and all of my guests breathe the same air that you do. There's nothing stopping you from taking bold action, opening up your world, challenging yourself to step up and live your life unlimited. I'm Dan Gordon. Thanks for listening. Now get out there and show the world the next greatest version of you. Hey, if you have some thoughts about the show you'd like to share with us, or if you think you've got what it takes to be a guest, send me a text at 213-409-8366. Let me know what you think, or let me know why you think you'd be a great guest for this show. Thanks again for listening. I hope you're inspired to unleash your badass self on the world.